don't just throw the job description on Indeed or LinkedIn or something like that. That's word salad. You want high performers. Recruiting is a marketing exercise. You want to win over the high performer just in the same way you want to win over a client. So you need to market your business. What does success look like in that role? Maybe throw up a video of the manager saying,
Vicki, welcome to a Resilient Entrepreneurs podcast. We're looking forward to this conversation today. And my favorite thing to kick off is a question about magic wands. If I were to hand you one right now, what big change would you like to see in the world?
well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast today. I'm so excited about our upcoming conversation. Um, Magic wand is an interesting question because, the first thing obviously that comes to mind is kind of the Miss America answer. I want peace and love for everyone in the world, and I really do want that. I mean, we're kind of in a little bit of the soup right now, and I think that the list of things that could be going in a better direction gets longer every day. So, under that broad umbrella, I'm not even going to begin to attack all of that. I will say that if I really only had one wish with a magic wand, it would probably be that I control everything. Because as I tell people, I am an only child, a lyric soprano, and a Leo. So I was born this way. I can't help it. So under that umbrella, I would say a little bit closer to home. I've really found that it's cliched, but Idomeneo, my company, is so important to me, and us reaching our goals and really heading full steam toward our vision. I've got an amazing team of people, and I want us to be wildly successful for them. So if I had a magic wand and I was limited to my little corner of paradise, I would say that I would probably provide us with endless capital. I think that we're going to be 25 next year, which is ridiculous to me because I'm only 25. But so it does not make any sense to me. But we've been around for 25 years, and we're bootstrapped, and so we've been very fortunate. We've been successful, and I'm thrilled about that. Every once in a while, you look over the fence at the greener pastures and say, what would it be like if we had done, an investment round or something like that? But as I mentioned before, I'm an only child. I don't play well with others. So investing was not was not an option. So we've gone for bootstrapping, and we put the revenues back into the business. And I love that. I love that because it means we've really been able to set out on our own path. And that's incredibly important to me.
Oh, so you've sprinkled in a whole lot there, but I need the specifics. What mission and vision do you have for your business? Tell us more.
Well, we're really all about helping our clients. So we're an HR consultancy, and we are basically an HR department for our clients. And we're certainly about the administrivia and getting the benefits enrollment form in and making sure payroll runs okay and all of those kinds of things. But more broadly than that, the thing that we really love is the consulting part of what we do. Consulting with entrepreneurs. When I started the company, I come from a corporate background, and someone actually, I'll tell you that story later, but someone actually kind of forced me to start the company. I was not going to be an entrepreneur. I was not going to have my own company. And one of the reasons that I mentioned to him that I was not going to do that is because as the chief HR officer, I kind of sat on the shoulder of the CEO. And I was their safe space for them to unload and, really talk about the challenges that they were having. And I was the one who would tap them on the shoulder and say, I know you want to do this, but did you think about this, or think about how that's going to impact the team, or think about, how that might impact our productivity, and on and on. And I loved being number two. I love that. I am the CEO whisperer. I love that. And little did I know I could create a company where we do that for a living. And it's that consultancy piece with small and mid-sized businesses, working with entrepreneurs. This may be their first business, maybe their fifth business, but they're figuring out how to lead a team, how to get a team, how to lead a team, how to manage a team, and how to really get people to go in the direction that they want to go. So that whole thing of helping entrepreneurs, that's our thing. That's our jam, if you will. That's what we love. And even more than that, helping managers with their tool belt to manage other people. Usually people get promoted to a manager role because they're really, really good at building the widget. They've done a great job at building the widget, and now they're a manager. That is a completely different job. It's a completely different muscle set because now you are enabling, coaching, prodding other people to build a great widget. And that's a different muscle set.
Mhm.
So helping managers become better managers is, we love that. Pardon me. We love that because not only is the manager the person that the employee is interfacing with all day, every day, and to them, that is the company. But also, as you're progressing in your career and you get promoted and you become a manager, you really need those additional skills. And if we can help you with that, then instead of reverting to old behaviors and going back to creating the widgets and micromanaging people and getting in the way, you can step into that new role and put on your leadership jacket and really start enhancing your career path and your skill set.
It is such an important thing that you note there, and the number of times you see high performers become managers, it's frightening. What I'd love to invite you to share with our audience and us is that if with that magic wand and you have your unlimited capital, because that's a pretty cool wish. I think I might borrow that wish. What would you do with the capital? What change would you make either in your business with limitless capital or, yeah, like what's the ripple effect, I suppose?
Sure. We have a couple of things that we're doing really well, and I would pour more fuel on that fire. So, around 2019, just before the pandemic hit, we had embarked on a rebrand. We finally really got into marketing. We kind of reignited our YouTube channel. We started a podcast. We started communicating a lot more. We built our email list, started communicating a lot more with that list, providing a lot more information and value nuggets to folks who may not be our clients, and then enhanced the information and the support that we were providing for our clients. I'm a little bit of a tech geek. So, we use a lot of technology in the company. Now that AI is around, we're using a lot of that. And I have all sorts of opinions about how AI should or should not interface with human resources. So we can talk about that. But I would, that whole marketing piece, that whole enhancing the value that we provide to clients and non clients, I would pour fire on that. We would probably maybe even embark on an ad spend, which is not something that we're doing currently. And so those are kinds of the things that I would really, really look at. We have Leaders Journey Experience, which is our division that is our education division. And I'm in love with that division. We started it at around the same time. It's built to provide educational support to entrepreneurs in a membership setting. So, low cost, but high value. So it to create that. And then also for our existing clients to give them another option to expand their experience. So we started putting together a lot of educational pieces around leadership. We've been doing a lot around human resources and how to grow your team and how to motivate your team and all of that. And now I'm really having the opportunity to kind of flex my coaching muscle a little bit and do more information around growing as a leader, the challenges of entrepreneurship, interestingly, the resilience that you need, how to build a resilient team, how to become a resilient leader and stay that way without burning yourself out. So all of those kinds of things are subjects that we're really providing educational support on. And so I would really blow up our leadership. Our Leaders Journey Experience piece as well. It's moving along, and so I'm very happy with it, but I'm impatient. I'm an entrepreneur.
That is perfect. I'm impatient. I'm an entrepreneur. That's my new quote for the week. Thank you. That's so true.
It is so true. And I love that you're focused on education because you're spreading what you're able to do to so many more people than being limited by the number of clients you can manage at any one time. Right. That is the joy of being able to have programs and coaching, cohorts and things like that. So you can deal with so many more people all at once and spread that great information. I love that for you. That's fantastic.
Exactly. You hit the nail right on the head. And I know you have an academy as well. And so that whole concept of being able to touch so many lives, and again, without burning yourself out, without, trying to do one to one. That is once I kind of really started thinking about that, it had such a draw and such an appeal for me. And I love it now. The feedback has been really, really tremendous. I get to use my teaching credential, which none of us thought I ever would. And I get to, use a little bit of my performance piece too, because we're writing and filming lessons all the time. So I'm really, really enjoying that piece.
Congratulations. And now you tipped on that you had teaching credentials. So let's rewind a little bit. Tell us what your entrepreneurial journey has been like so far and what got you into it. You mentioned that you weren't going to be an entrepreneur. So tell us the story.
Hey there, sorry for the interruption, but if you're a woman entrepreneur ready to raise your profile, expand your reach, and start being seen as the expert you already are, we have a challenge for you. Vicki and I have created a free guide called the LinkedIn to Latte Method. Check it out in the link below. It's designed especially for women who are done playing small and are ready to attract opportunities, clients, and increase your visibility. No tech overwhelm, no awkward call DMs, just clear, authentic strategy that works. So download the free LinkedIn to Latte guide below, take the challenge, and start turning your brilliance into real opportunities. Now, back to the episode.
I was not. I was not. Well, and I'm going to make this really short. I was singing always, I think. And when I went to college, I was going to study music. And my mother said, that's fine, but you need a real job. So I studied music education. And so I would end up with a teaching credential and I could teach, which I never did. Very challenging. My hat is off to teachers everywhere. That is one of the most challenging jobs, right up there with parenting, that I can think of. And particularly if you're a vocalist and you're teaching, you're using your instrument all day, every day. And I'm a little bit of a hothouse flower in singing because, as I said, I'm a lyric soprano. So we're always like, oh, it's not humid enough and it's dry and it's too hot and it's Tuesday and I can't possibly hit that note, all of that. So um, it's to use my instrument all day long, every day, and not think about how I'm using it, and probably talking over a few high school students on occasion. That was just not something that allowed me to then sing with the kind of support that I felt like I needed to do. I also knew that I was not going to be an opera singer because I'm also a homebody. So I wasn't going to move to Germany and sing in a bunch of small opera houses and, watch my career slowly but surely, hopefully, expand. I wanted to do something close to home. So I actually ended up in the LA Master Chorale and singing with the LA Opera Company for about 20 seasons and also singing with the Philharmonic. And so that was really fantastic. I got to practice my craft and be close to home. And so I did that for years and years and years. And so didn't use the teaching credential, didn't sing professional. I mean, I sang professionally, but that wasn't, my one job. And so I was working as an administrative assistant, ended up working for HBO actually. And I was there for 15 years. That's how I moved into human resources. They didn't have anyone in California that was working on HR at the time. And New York HR said, California is weird. We have no idea what their HR laws are. Here's the card for our labor attorney. Figure it out. So I actually learned HR at the knee of HBO's labor attorney. And to this day, he's the labor attorney for Idomeneo. That was 1,000 years ago. And I love him very much. And he's still my partner in crime. So that's how I kind of got into human resources. So at HBO for about 15 years, worked in advertising for a few years, ended up at a financial services technology company. And that was around 99, 2000. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a technology bust at about that time. And so we had to close the company. And the president of that company came to me. We closed in Feb of 2001, actually. And he came to me and said, you were employee number, whatever it was, 7 or 12 or whatever. And he said, I have never seen anybody build HR the way you did. You might think about it being a service that you can provide to other people. And I said, oh my goodness, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that idea. I'm totally not doing that. I'm going to go get a job because I am number two. We get back to I'm a great number two. I didn't have aspirations to be an entrepreneur. I didn't have aspirations to have my own company. I didn't even have a lemonade stand when I was a kid. I didn't do any of those things. And he said, okay, well, think about it. And I was like, okay, I thought about it. I'm going to go interview now. And in April, he came to me and said that he had a new gig and that he needed some HR support. He knew what I made and he was not going to pay me that. And so could I just do a couple projects for him? And I said, sure. So from April to August, he slowly but surely increased the number of projects until he knew that my compliance gene would kick in. And so by August of that year, I was like, listen, I'm dealing with confidential information. We need an agreement between us. I need insurance. I need a corporate veil to protect my house. And all these things need to happen. So I'm going to incorporate. And he just laughed and nodded because that was his plan all along. So that's that's our origin story. And he was our first client. And he grew that business beyond all understanding. It ended up being a worldwide business, and they were a client for over 10 years. So
That's such an interesting story. I love that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs listening right now can absolutely relate because often we find ourselves falling into entrepreneurship a little unwillingly. I know I can raise my hand to that too. Absolutely. So I love that. But what I'm curious about, because you talked about, HBO and then finance and tech, and they're all such different types of industries. Do you find like when it comes to HR, people are people are people? And they
exactly.
yeah, I find that really interesting as a part of HR. So, for an entrepreneur looking to scale a business and hire, and what do they need to know? What are some great tips for when those entrepreneurs out there are starting out and need to start making their first hires as an HR professional? What tips would you give them?
Sure. Well, the standard one that everyone gets is make sure you delegate, make sure you don't micromanage. And all of those things are absolutely true. And I stand on that foundation. But I have to back all the way up and say, before you even think about everyone wants a high performing team, you want high performers on your team. But before you even get to that point, you have to figure out what you need. What do you need in your business? Where is the gap? What do they need to do? When you just go blindly into a recruiting process and you get a bunch of resumes and you review them and then you bring someone in, you are not setting that person up for success. You don't have a defined road of what success looks like, what you need them to accomplish by when, with what tools, under what circumstances. And also, whether or not you brought in the best person is questionable because before you even get to the interview or get to going through the resumes, it all starts with us. And I'm sorry, fellow entrepreneurs, it's true. Everything starts with us. So you have to look at yourself and say, what do I need? What can I tolerate? Because we can certainly sabotage a new employee very easily. What do I need? What can I tolerate? And how do I get the right person in the organization to help grow the organization or free me up so that I can help the organization grow and that person can take on some additional responsibilities? So understanding what the job description, now I'm just going into HR, kind of gobbledygook, but understanding the job description and understanding what those tasks are that you need completed is tremendously important. And then don't just throw the job description on Indeed or LinkedIn or something like that. That's word salad. You want high performers. Recruiting is a marketing exercise.
Mm.
You want to win over the high performer just in the same way you want to win over a client. So you need to market your business. What does success look like in that role? Maybe throw up a video of the manager saying, "Oh, this is what I'm looking for, et cetera, et cetera." That makes you stand out. It makes you different. It makes people think, "Oh, that's a really interesting company. Let me see." Because high performers have their choice of where they're going to go and who they're going to apply to. And you want to entice them to apply to you. Let them know what their day is going to look like. Is it mostly solitary? They're going to be working on research projects and things like that, or are they collaborating a lot with other team members or external individuals? So lay that kind of thing out. Are you a quirky company? Do you have some like weird little fun thing that you do? Put it in there. So you really have to attract the right candidate. And then once you do that, when you're going through the interview process, give it the time and the attention and the respect that it deserves. And I say that from personal experience of not doing that because I'm notorious. First of all, I'm an HR person who hates recruiting. So I just have to admit that I'm not particularly good at it. I'm very, very fortunate in that I have a staffing director that I brought on. That was my one really great thing. And she is exceptional. And she's like basically everybody on the team came from her through her. But she always gets after me because back in the day, the interview's coming in at 3 o'clock. They get here at 2:45. I grab the resume at 2:50, let them sit in the lobby while I run through the resume, call them into my office at 3 o'clock and look at it and say, "Okay, tell me about yourself." That is not the interview that's going to get you the information that you need to figure out if you have the right person. So you have to prepare. You have to review the resume. What's not on that resume that you need to know? And then ask thoughtful questions and listen. Um, if the entrepreneurs out there are anything like me, we love our company. We can talk about it for a really long time, and we do. And so, and that's wonderful because there is a time and a place in that interview to sell your company. But initially, you've got to listen and you've got to be comfortable with the silences so that you can get at the real information. So I've just talked a lot. I apologize, but broadly speaking, that's what you need to do. And then create a development and career path for that person because high performers don't want to be stagnant. So
That is such great information, Vicky. I'm glad you talked a lot because you covered a lot of ground there. And as you were talking, I was imagining or remembering sometimes that Laura and I have been in where we thought, oh, we're growing, we've got too much on our plate, let's pass it off. But sadly, we didn't always do the things that you've just described, and the relationship didn't last. So, needless to say, just because we feel like we've got enough to pass off doesn't mean that it's, I think I equate it to, whether it's a logical or an emotional transaction or decision. Because I think as entrepreneurs, emotionally, we're just excited and relieved that somebody wants to help. And that's clearly not the way to go.
right, right, exactly. And again, I keep talking about setting them up for success. They need clarity. They're not reading our minds. They're not in there, thank goodness for them, among all of the information that we have flying around in our brains all the time. And so creating an SOP, creating a process, training, really giving people training when they start. And I mean not just on the task that they're going to work on, but tell them about your company. I think that the thing that we forget, we have the vision so strongly in our head and it's echoing in there 24/7. And we think that we've communicated fully, thoroughly, and often enough for other people to really embed it in their DNA. And you have to do it 10 times more than you think is over the top because they're not thinking about it 24/7. There are all these other things that they're working on. You're the holder of the flame, and it's your responsibility to pass that flame on. So you have to do it often, and you have to do it, with energy and consistency.
Oh, that is like the best advice. Absolutely right. And we say the same thing about branding and marketing. We get tired of our own branding and we're like, let's switch it up. Let's do some different marketing. No, your clients have not even seen it yet and you're switching it up. You're confusing the market. And the same way we confuse the people that we work with if
Mhm.
we don't stay consistent and continuously remind them of the why, the mission, the vision, the stuff that we were talking about. Yeah, and as it evolves, and I think that's something too, especially early stage entrepreneurs, like we're evolving companies, right? So it's
Exactly.
going to change, it's going to grow. You got to make sure everyone that's with you is in the same boat, row in the same direction.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And people get fully engaged and fully pleased with what they're doing when they know how they are impacting the growth and the trajectory of the company. If you keep them plugged in, they will give you all sorts of benefit, all sorts of benefits. So it's really important to, motivating people is not necessarily an easy task. And it takes a lot of attention, it takes thoughtfulness, and it takes a lot of introspection because, again, if you're anything like me, ego can get in the way in the weirdest ways and kind of deflect the plan that you have in place. So I was just on a call this morning with the team, and one person mentioned that she was having some trouble with her email, and our tech company was going to, work with them and talk to our email company and et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, oh, really? Well, have you talked to them? And I want to take a look at it. And when are you having the meeting? And blah, blah, blah. And in the time it took me to drive into the office and actually get here after that phone call, I went into her office and I said, you know what? I'm so sorry. I put my foot in that. I don't have anything to do with it. You've totally got it handled. You don't. I was like, she's been working on this with them for a week. They're in the final stages, and I'm going to jump in and start, well, have you done this and have you done that? And it's that I started thinking to myself, why are you so prone to do that? Even after all these years and after all the training that you give other people and that you tell yourself, why do you want to jump into that? And I realized I was just being nosy. I was just deciding that I had the answer. I don't know what everyone else has done for the past 2 weeks to solve this problem, but I'm sure I can just step right in and solve it right away. Well, no, you can't. Go to your office, do what you're supposed to do, and let the team that you have and the team that you are paying for do what they're supposed to do. So it's an ongoing lesson to be learned.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you for sharing that story because it's a bit of vulnerability too. It's something that we can all relate to. We might not all want to admit to. So thank you for sharing that. I think it really says a lot, and it's going to help people. And this is what we see. You would see this as well as a coach in the workplace and with entrepreneurs building businesses is how we do get in our own way of success despite our best intentions. So that's just a beautiful story. Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, I've got a million of those, but you're very welcome.
I'm curious, how much weight or influence do you see profiling having? So, what I mean by that is the profiling tests, the different personality or
Yeah.
thinking tests.
We actually did some educational information for our clients on the whole personality test, profiling tests, et cetera, et cetera. And particularly here in the States, it is incredibly important that you not use those tests to select candidates. You can use them once someone has been hired to see how the team can communicate or where there might be communication bottlenecks or what kind of communication style one person has over another person. You can certainly use them for that and to help align the team. But prior to hire, it really gets you in some difficult spots, primarily because most of those tests, the vast majority of them, were not created to select candidates. They're not selection tools. So they're not validated. They're not scientifically validated for that. Second of all, generally speaking, the person who's evaluating the tool is probably going to be some, old schmo like me who doesn't know anything about it. It's like generally it's the entrepreneur or the head of the business that's, looking at the thing and saying, looking at the results and saying, oh, this person is a JLPT and that person is a 50% this and 60% that. We are not scientists that can evaluate those tools. So making hiring decisions based on that can easily end you up in a lawsuit. So the tools certainly have value. Some are more valuable in my mind than others. They certainly have value for people to understand tendencies that they may be showing at that particular moment and for teams to align communication. But it's not going to be one and done. People evolve. So, if you're going to look at that, then maybe look at it every couple of years because, again, things change. People do have adaptation styles. They will adapt to the environment, adapt to the needs. So, you want to be able to capture all of that. So the tools are valuable, but when it gets to interviewing, when it gets to candidate selection, there's nothing better than looking at their skill set and talking to them about what they've done in the past and really drilling down into that. I think too often, particularly in interviews, we ask the easy surface question, but we don't drill down enough to not only be sure we're getting at the true answer, but also to be able to have enough meat to the answer that we can make an evaluation. For instance, asking someone, well, when was the last time that you disappointed a client and how did that turn out? So they'll tell you the story, but there are questions behind that question. How did the client respond? How would you have wanted the client to respond? What kind of support did you get from your manager or the company? What could we have done? What could you have done better? What policy could the company have changed to ensure that situation didn't happen in the future? But if it did, what kind of training could they have provided? So on and on and on. You just keep drilling down because not only do you want the answer, but you want to get a feel for how they think. So you really do need to get the question behind the question out there.
That's good. What do you think about the importance placed on hiring the people, not just for the right fit for the job, but the diversity aspect is what I want to get to. Like, because often we will want to be around people that are like us, that think like us, that come from the same background as us. But we also recognize after so many conversations we've had on this platform how important diversity is in boards, in around boardroom tables, the board of directors that advise you as a business owner, and the people that you work with, because those diverse backgrounds bring so much more, I think, richness to conversations and help you see blind spots. Like, tell us your thoughts on the importance of that.
Sure. Well, I think diversity of thought is the strongest building block that you can have in your company. Um, I think I'm brilliant, but listen, other people have brought forward ideas that if that idea hadn't come forward, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we are today. And I never would have thought of it. And it's because they had a different experience in their background. They could say, either at my prior company, we did this, or I was always attracted to this in school, or I love this aspect of, creativity or whatever the case may be. So diversity of thought is incredibly important. And generally speaking, diversity of thought is probably also going to mean diversity of background. It may end up showing up on someone's face, but it may not. We don't know. But you really have to fight against hiring clones. You cannot hire a bunch of yous. First of all, you want to fill in the gaps. Where you have gaps, you want to close those gaps. If you hire a bunch of yous, you've just got a bunch of people with the same gaps, the same perception, and the same perspective. That's not valuable. Also, it doesn't allow for creativity. I don't want to talk to a room full of people that are exactly, view their creativity in exactly the same way that I view mine. They're not bringing anything fresh to the table. And that's what I need. It's also important to have a mix of, genders and a mix of experiences, because all of that just makes the whole thing better. There's one thing that I tell people all the time, and it was a tremendous surprise to me. But after a few years, I realized that, those days, I call them Tuesdays, those days where Monday is really, really busy. Friday is, oh my goodness, almost the weekend, which means nothing to entrepreneurs. But so, so,
Facts.
right. But, you have a great idea, you're going for the vision, you have all of these goals, you've put them all in a sauna, everybody's ready to go, and you're going along and going along, and it's week 7, and it's a Tuesday, and it's just another day that you have to work on the goals and do the thing and blah 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 blah. And yes, it's exciting to reach the goals, but in the middle of all of that is just a lot. The middle part is a lot of work. And when you're an entrepreneur and you're coming in and it's Tuesday and you're exhausted because you're up all night doing something you probably should have done on Monday, and you're thinking about that client who's becoming a little troublesome and you're not quite sure how to deal with that, or you've looked at the cash flow recently and that's a really interesting color. And so you have all of these things that are weighing on your mind. On those kinds of Tuesdays, it's been a tremendous surprise to me. I come into the office, I walk through and I go to my office, and I am so incredibly grateful and energized and overjoyed just listening to my team work and collaborate with one another. Seeing them do the business of Idomeneo is the thing that just gets my juices flowing. It really does. It's just, it makes me so happy, and it makes me feel so strong and energized. And that's something that I think, and it can happen, it doesn't have to be in a physical setting, it can be in a virtual setting. But to know that you've got, these brilliant creatures, these human beings who are saying, I'm on your side, I'm rowing the boat in the same direction you're rowing, and I'm here for you. You tell me which way to go. That there's nothing better. There's nothing better. So take care of your team, and they will take care of you.
Gosh, that's so beautiful. The gratitude that I hear in what you're saying, it's an important reminder, isn't it? Yeah, that when things feel tough or
Absolutely.
flat or unmotivated, pick up a little gratitude. Look around you, look at what is working so well that we sometimes take for granted. Yeah.
Precisely.
And on that
Precisely.
diversity thing, Vicky, I'm also, look, Laura and I work in the space of really elevating the voice of women because we've recently become aware of alarming statistics that I suppose we shouldn't have been alarmed by, but we are. I mean, for instance, in Australia, 51% of the workforce is women, and
Mm-hmm.
less than 20% of that workforce is female CEOs. When we raise our personal brand, it opens up other opportunities. I'd love for you to speak into this, given the wealth of experience you have working with um, employees and leaders who are building teams.
That's an amazing thing that you said, because I'm not going to generalize, but certainly um, history has shown us that women can be quieter. We can put our heads down and just, hack away at the work. And I will say, in my personal experience, that's what I did at Dominale for a long time. We just started really kind of enhancing our marketing process a few years ago. We dabbled, but I wasn't really putting us out there. And if I'm not doing it with the personality I have, then, I'm sure with someone who's a little more introverted, it can be very challenging. And so I think it's so incredibly important for women to stand up, and we need other women to support us in doing that. For women to stand up and sing their song. Do it. Stand up and tell people you may have the greatest business on the face of the planet, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't mean anything. You've got to be visible. And in order to be visible, you have to get your voice out there. And so I love that, women support women. I love it when there are environments and processes and programs and, learning opportunities and masterminds and all of that that support women in really getting their voice out there. We've got it all. We don't necessarily need to learn how to have the vision, but we need to learn and have the gumption to sing the song of the vision and to really get out there and stand out there and say, this is what I stand for. This is what we do. hello, we're over here and we do all these fabulous things. And I'm going to keep telling you, like I keep telling my team, the vision over and over again. I'm going to tell the rest of the world, this is Edomineo. This is what we do.
Mm. You
Oh,
were the second, and you were the one who wanted the second seat. You were the CEO whisperer, and you've
Exactly.
now moved into that front seat. So I think this is what happens: is we hide behind our company brand. Oh, I'm doing all the branding, I'm doing all the marketing, but they're putting the company name out front. What do you see as the difference?
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's really, and the thing that kind of really triggered me was our podcast, our YouTube channel. That's kind of all me. And I thought about it for a while and I was like, should it be all me? And of course that appeals to, that other side of my personality. But I also thought, yeah, it should. This is my company. I have the vision. I know where we're going. I have a pretty good idea of how we're going to get there, and I want to educate other people, so other entrepreneurs. And so as a result, a lot of people who are involved in our community are women, and that's totally okay for me. We have some men, and that's wonderful too, but primarily I'm probably speaking to women, and very often I'm probably speaking to women of color, although that's not the specific target that I have. But again, that's perfectly all right, because we need to support one another in getting our voices out there. So if I can do that if I can help someone really get their story told, and so that they can get more revenue, become more successful, grow their business, blow it up, then my job is, I'm done.
and I think that's exactly what you were saying earlier about how you attract, the right people to you, like not just putting out a job description, but putting out marketing the company. Well, if you're marketing the CEO of the company too, there's nobody better to share that mission and vision and get people to want to join it. Right. So it absolutely works for that. And I think the mindset shift is not it's just me out there telling the world how great I am, but rather how can I share my knowledge to help someone else? How can I share my story so that someone else feels comfortable to tell their story? How can I attract the right people that want to work with me that I can then serve and help? It's just a total mindset shift from being the, blabbermouth. Sometimes it feels very masculine and like that. But how do we do it in a feminine way that feels good, that feels like giving and gifting and sharing? Because I know us too. I felt very uncomfortable, being on camera and talking and hosting a podcast. Felt very uncomfortable and unnatural in the beginning. Now I can't wait because I get to talk to awesome people like you, and this is like the best part of my week. Like, there's nothing better than this. But it does take a little bit of a shift, a little bit of that mindset shift.
It does. And the thing is, I'm so grateful for the women who have come before me, because I'm inspired by other women. I listen to the amount of podcasts I listen to and YouTube channels I'm watching and classes and courses that I'm taking. I mean, I'm my own client basically. But, and I know how that has helped me become better at this role. And so if I can do any level of that for the folks behind me, then I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. And there's such a big part of me that wants to end the podcast on this note, but I have a question I have to ask first. Because you touched on it a little bit, but we haven't talked about it yet. It's what's the role of AI? Like, what's coming? Because we know the workforce is going to be so impacted. We know that this is something on everybody's mind, whether it's stretching them out or getting them excited. Everyone's thinking about it, talking about it. There's, people coming into the workforce, young people who have a lot of concerns. Are there going to be jobs for me? A lot of entrepreneurs going, do I hire or do I just get a bot to do the work for me? There's so many questions. I don't expect you to answer them all, of course. We need a whole nother podcast for that. But but just like give me your high level, like how are you feeling? How are you feeling about AI coming into a lot of what you do?
I love AI. I'm terrified of AI. I always say please and thank you. I'm one of those people who has named my AI. I've got ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude and Gemini. I've got everything, and they all have different names. And so And at some point, I'm terrified that the bot overlords are going to take over. And when they do, I want them to see I said please and thank you. I don't know when all of that's going to happen, but there you go. But in the meantime, it's an incredible tool. And I think that as long as people understand and remember, it's a tool. So we deal with clients nationwide. I have a team of just under 20. And there is no way that the HR business partners, those are the HR executives that deal with our clients, would be able to know the sick leave policy in Ohio as well as the parental leave policy in Hawaii, if we didn't have some sort of technology support. And as we can increase that support, and again, I think my role is to get high performers and give them the environment and the tool to be high performers. So that means technology. We've always had technology in our company. And now it's becoming more AI driven, but it is there as a tool to support the business partners so that they can, my philosophy hasn't changed. We use our technology so that we can get at the information as quickly as possible and get you the information as quickly as possible so we can spend more time on the human side of human resources. So that's what it's there for. It's a support for them. It's never going to replace them, because as long as you're dealing with a human being on the other end of the phone, they need empathy, they need sympathy, they need you to hear the inflection in their voice, they need you to realize, oh, I need to ask a different kind of question here. They need for you to connect that you talked to them 3 weeks ago and you were crying about X, Y, and Z, and this may have something to do with that. And again, you can program all of that, but not as effectively as the human brain can process it. So, and then you layer on human emotion on top of that. And that is how you can actually support the folks that you're working with. So, AI is fantastic. I use it all the time. I'm using it more and more every day. I love it. I'm thinking of other ways we can incorporate it in our business. We probably, at some point, will have some AI agents in our business, figuring out, where that all makes the most sense. But the one thing people need to keep in mind, AI is still in its infancy. So it's still, a baby that gets things wrong all the time. So it requires a lot of human oversight. Don't get comfortable. Don't get complacent. Kevin, ChatGPT, said something to me the other day that I knew was totally wrong. I'm like, what is this? This is not true. And he's like, oh, that's right. It's not. I'm sorry. Well, that's not good enough, So it definitely requires, you have to review the output that's coming from that. Remember, it is a tool that you're using, and it will get better. Every day it gets better. Every second of every day it gets better. So it may not require as much human review as time goes on, but it will always be a tool.
Yes. And it will not replace connection. That's exactly what I heard you say. We as humans, we need connection. We will always need to work together. We will always need to magnetically bring in the right people into our spheres. So yeah, thank you for sharing that message. I like hearing that. That's good. You give me some positivity to end on.
We're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. I think as time goes by, we will get a little bit over the novelty of everything and really kind of understand how the tool can be supportive for us, and people will start using it more as a tool. So I think we'll get there. There are a few bumps in the road between here and there, but I think we'll get there.
Can't agree more. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there soon. It's coming fast. But it's not going to replace human connection, which is what this whole conversation has been about. Beautiful human connection. And thank you so much. This has been a really, really lovely podcast. I can't wait to listen to it again and again. Thank you, Vicky and Vicky, for a great conversation today. It's been fun to have you both here.
Thank you, Vicky.
Well, thank you both. This was great.